Alright. Got one package. We almost didn't. Amazon basically said they delivered it, but their shipping said they had delivered it in person. Which they did. They left it... If they had said in the mailroom, I would have known what they meant. Because, well, it's not exactly a mailroom. It's at least closer to what they did. But no. Instead, they just kind of left it on the floor in the mailroom. Alright, so we have How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom. You know, I watched this one on Crunchy Munchy and already talked about it. I see region A and B. I see an English dub. After war comes more reform. You know, it's an okay series. There's flaws to it, I would say. I think I already talked about those when I talked about having watched them, but they're not necessarily unfun per se. I don't know. I say that, but some people might actually not like some of those things, and that's okay. Something tells me this is part 2. Just thinking there's probably a part 1 somewhere around here for me to put this in. So we've got Blu-ray disc 3 and Blu-ray disc 4. Then DVD disc 3 and DVD disc 4. I remember it being as long as a 2-parter. Just a second. Here it is. I was looking for the box so that we could take this out. Sounds empty. And then put this all in there in one big complete collection. Part 1, part 2. Alright. Okay, now I think a doctor wrote this title, but Drowning Sorrows in Raging Fire. Trying to think. Unravel the past, save the future. Regions A and B. I think that's an English dub. Honestly, it never got in focus on the camera for me. Which could be with my eyes, and if y'all saw it, it's fine. So, you know, I can't see the things on this itty bitty screen so well, I guess. Oh, come on, come on. Trying to think if that was different. This is different. Why didn't I notice that? Okay. Then we've got disc 1 and disc 2. I'm not sure what to make of this one. It doesn't look bad. I'm just not sure what to make of it. Interesting. And then last but not least, we have the Heike Story? Yeah, that sounds maybe about right. It just sounds a little... The Gift and Curse of Foresight. Regions A and B. English dub. From the studio behind Keep Your Hands Off. Why do I not know what that is? Oh, this probably says what it is on here. 12 episodes? This sounds intriguing. Go. That was being a little sticky there. I think I said, yeah, I got all the stuff on the back. We have 2 discs. It's a curiosity. I kind of like the foreboding description, and the art style looks a little strange. It kind of reminds me of Mushishi in a way. Anyways, it's small, but here's this week's anime DVD collection update. Alright, well, it's been a bit of a week. I guess nothing problematic. Mostly Pokemon, but let's talk about other stuff. So first of all, anime I watched, Spy Family Season 1, Episode 21. I'd say a kind of neat episode. Right now, I'm trying to remember what some of the episodes were like in the first half of Season 1. But I felt like this episode is utilizing its characters a little bit more, which makes me think, you know, it kind of went on this kind of little slump where it was just experimenting with some stuff. A little more hit or miss, but now I feel like it's building back up. I guess we are getting close to the second end half of the first season, or at least this core. Not sure what else I can really comment. I guess we're introduced to a new character. We might have seen them in the previous episode. I don't exactly remember, but seeing them in this episode, you know, they were kind of neat. A very neat addition. We've got Beast Tamer, episode 9. I guess it just sort of continues. I guess for me, I'm not exactly sure what draw I have to continue watching it per se. It's not that it's not doing anything, but I just kind of wonder if I could accidentally put it down. So at least it lines up for me better than some of the other shows that I just not finished. But I'm trying to think if there's any comments I can make. Some of the stories are kind of okay, interesting, but I guess I feel like the show is starting to be a little bit weighed down by I don't feel a direction for it per se. I say per se, I mean I think I feel a little bit of it there, but it feels, yeah, it feels like it could use a little something more, and I don't know, it's a general feeling. I may have more thoughts on that, but I'm not sure if I can think clearly enough to say those, especially without spoiling them. Let's see. Bakshi the Rock, episode 8. I'd say it was actually a neat episode. It's kind of a risky episode, not necessarily like risque, but rather risky from the point of view of it's a show about a group of people that are trying to... I'm trying to think how to step up a couple levels. I guess they're trying to be entertainers. And I think there's a real trickiness where this is an episode which is stronger on them doing that sort of thing, and there's a question of how effective something like that will work. It's kind of similar to the problem, like if you talk about the problem with Naruto as a series, especially for the vast majority of its run and beginning stuff, it's okay, it presents a problem, but with the problem as the main theme, how does it actually approach it in a way where it's like, oh, yeah, it's just a cop-out. And Naruto as a series kind of knew it couldn't, which is why I'd say most of the time it didn't. And it felt like there was only one time in there where it felt like it really did address that. And then everything else after that was neat, but kind of a little kumbaya, hokidori. Things went a little too smooth in that regard, I guess. Yeah, anyways, the point is, you know, some of these things that these series bring up are like, okay, well, how do you actually come up with something clever? And usually with a lot of shows, you can get away with some good storytelling because, like, you can make it where the characters come to decisions that you sat there and pondered for a long time and said, okay, this, and this. Or you can make it where there's something that they notice that's just like, okay, that's kind of silly. And anime's not the only thing that does this. Like, there's a series called Monk, which pulls off a lot of that stuff, and it's very entertaining and convincing in that regard. I mean, that one's also got some good acting going on to help back all that stuff up, too. kind of in a lot of directions. But, you know, Bakshi the Rock is about these girls playing music, and so it's like, okay, when they're playing music, if you're wanting to make it where it seems like they are spectacular, then that means that you kind of have to have something that feels spectacular. And I don't think it was trying to make them out to be prodigies and that, but it's like, okay, if you're going to make it where the characters in this show like it and enjoy it, then what am I, as a watcher, going to feel watching it? Sometimes it works if I'm just empathizing with the way people are acting, and then sometimes that's going on and I'm still questioning, you know, trying to project myself in there, and I can't agree with them. But I felt the episode did an okay enough job that it passed that test, I suppose. And saying stuff like that is always tricky, because, like, even with the Idols shows I've seen here and there, I probably wouldn't go to any of those Idols concerts. Any is a strong word. There may be some where I might go for a different reason other than, oh, yeah, I want to see these idols perform, or something like that. But, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thought about that episode. Chainsaw Man episode 7. I did mention end of episode 6. Seemed to be setting up for episode 7, and in episode 7, it was kind of a mix. More on the positive side, I would say. Because, like, it didn't feel like a complete setup, but what it did do was actually pretty interesting given what was set up in the previous episode. But it wasn't just, you know, it felt like the in-between episodes wasn't we're setting up for episode 7. It felt like this is just the cliffhanger we happen to be in the middle of. So more like in the middle of a story arc, like for Demon Slayer or something like that. Which, again, it's not necessarily bad, except for just kind of the unexpected. It didn't feel like it'd be that way. It's probably not the only show to do it. I didn't think it handled it bad. I'm trying to remember everything that happened in that episode, but the truth of the matter is that was before Thanksgiving, so that one's probably the hardest to remember. We had Irina the Vampire Cosmonaut. I only watched 2 additional episodes. That's episodes 5 and 6. Good enough stuff. I think, though, with episode 6, I was kind of having a little bit of an issue with some of the stuff they were doing. I think my main problem is, while I know that the show is set up that there are people who don't trust Irina, I had to look at the tile just to even remember her name, because I'm just that bad with names. I understand that there are some people that don't trust her and are maybe pushing things, but the thing I don't understand is this idea that these people are allowed to push to a degree that actually jeopardizes destroying, and I'm saying this from the point of view of the Russian government, not Russian government, I don't remember what government they're called in that one. The government in that one, you know, it's supposed to be Russia, because it's supposed to, maybe not Russia, maybe the Soviet Union. You know, it's supposed to be a kind of alternative world version of our space race. But this person was going too far and actually could have been argued to have been jeopardizing the mission by needlessly damaging equipment, I suppose, for lack of better words. And so our main character stepped up for different reasons, but at the same time, I feel like the show's overstepped its believability in terms of what specifically would happen. Because, you know, the show has shown very strongly that the mission is top priority. The titular character being treated like a sentient creature is low priority. In fact, it's supposed to be negative priority, I think. But even if you put that aside, it feels like the wrong thing happened. And it's the show kind of needing to throw conflict in there for our characters that kind of gets in their way, which, you know, it's done little bits here and there, but I don't know. It felt like it overstepped itself, and this is the halfway point to the series, and I did want to watch more, but obviously Pokemon took a high priority. Alright, so putting those aside, Reincarnated as a Sword, Episode 8. Let's see. Okay. It wrapped up what I thought was being set up at the end of the last episode surprisingly quickly. So kind of a similar problem to Chainsaw Man in that regard. Maybe. Let's see, it had that stuff set up. Okay, yeah, that's what it set up for episode 9. Definitely kind of curious where it was going for episode 9, which I guess I'll get to see in a couple days. Still kind of enjoying the series, I think. I'm feeling it more than Beast Tamer, at least, if I were to take a point of comparison. So, beyond that, I don't think the next dub episode of To Your Eternity came out. My guess would be that it was Thanksgiving, and so the dub probably got a little delayed. I thought this was the week when the new episode of Uncle from Another World was supposed to air, but it didn't look like it did. I'll probably look that up just a little bit to make sure that's on schedule. Maybe it was supposed to be next week or something. I'm the Villainous, so I'm taming the final boss. The next episode of that did come out. I just hadn't watched it, and that all sums up into the new Pokemon game is just fun. It's buggy as fucking hell, but the bugs don't seem to really get in the way of enjoying it. I'd say the worst one is just when you're trying to connect to a raid battle online and you get these random communication errors in the middle of trying to connect. Something's wrong with your party's Pokemon, and then you try again 1 second later and oh yeah, it succeeded. So it's really something on Nintendo's end in that regard, as far as I can tell. Like, I haven't seen anything that suggests that anything I do adjusts that. And if you're like, oh, well, maybe you should just be hardwired in instead of over the internet, well, I am. So, I don't know, but I'm having fun. I'm moving in strange bursts and directions, I suppose. I finished all the 3 routes that lead to the end game. That lead to the end story, I suppose. And I'm supposed to do that, but at this point, I've got a good enough feel for this game and for researching certain stuff that I'm actually setting up utility Pokemon, which are basically Pokemon that serve a very specific purpose, utility. Now, maybe you think, oh, does this mean HM slaves? Wait, there's no HMs in this game. No, in this case, it's like I've been playing through this game for like a week or longer without any Pokemon that know false swipe. Most of my catching has been either a couple of lucky things that I did on the side or the raid battles of varying difficulties. And I'm only up to 4-star stuff. I need to do the final game stuff to get the 5 stars. But the point is more, you know, I've got a false swipe Pokemon. I've got a Pokemon that should help a ton with problem Pokemon that the false swipe Pokemon would not be able to handle. In particular to Golduck. So the false swipe Pokemon I'm going with Gallade. Gallade is a supernatural false swiper. They learn Sword Dance, they learn false swipe, they learn Hypnosis. Those are 3 really good capture moves. And then I guess it's a question of what you do for the 4th one. And in this case I went with Life Dew just to maybe recover HP a bit here and there. But what about problematic typing? What about problematic abilities? That's where I've got a Golduck. Basically, Soak to change the type of any Pokemon to water. So that gets rid of abnormal or annoying typing. I gave it skill swap so that, and it has Cloud 9. So Cloud 9 prevents weird weather stuff from
affecting me, and I think right at this point that would just be Sandstorm. And then I can skill swap it to the opponent to give them Cloud9 so it stays into play, and also get rid of any problematic abilities that they have, give or take certain abilities that you can or cannot do that to. Such as a Comatose on that sleepy koala thing. And its only other two moves, it's got Screech to lower the defense, I guess, and Yawn, an egg move, to just you know, kind of assist in the making things go to sleep and making that more convenient. But other than that, you know, I'm at the point where I've EV trained them and I'm just leveling them up. I'm probably not going to IV hyper train them. I don't know. I haven't decided yet because they're utility Pokemon, and once they're a high enough level, it maybe doesn't matter because they don't need. They just need to deal with stuff in the game, and you've got other options if you really need to deal with that sort of stuff. But that's pretty much what I'm focusing right now. And I took a small hiatus from that because I realized I have a shit ton of the berries that remove EVs. My Gardevoir, which I've caught as a route and I've been training up, I gave it a modest leaf, a mint, so that it, for all intents and purposes, has a modest nature. It's actually rash, but you know, the stats are adjusted as if it's modest. And I removed the EVs from the stats that I didn't want to have them so that I could max out attack and HP. Because the idea is, if you're playing through single player, usually, as long as the Pokemon has a high enough base speed stat, you can just outspeed any Pokemon by just being a high enough level. And that's the motivation here. And outside of that, when it comes to the raid battles, I would say that something like speed doesn't matter as much. It still has its place in there, and you probably still want decent speed, but the truth of the matter is I think you should just kind of expect those stats to just go down. You should expect yourself to take damage in the higher level raid battles. So in that regard, it's like trying to outrun the enemy makes less sense than trying to take more hits. That's why you know, it has a lot of HP and a lot of special attack. And she's now level 100 and ready to kick butt. I have not tried a 5-star battle yet, or 6-star, but I am definitely interested in doing that. But first things first, you know, if it's just me on my own, I've got to get my utility Pokemon up there, because before I go into the final area, where I know there's some Pokemon I'll want to catch, I want to make sure my utility Pokemon are up to the task. Yeah, those other two, I think they can stay on the side a bit. I don't know, because I can go into the box and change things around, maybe it doesn't matter too much. But, you know, that's kind of where I am. It's been very fun. Again, you know, it's got performance issues, it's got bugs, but the game's still been very fun despite those. Sometimes because of them, because it's just like, like, they made it where the trainer disappears when you're in a wild Pokemon battle. The another trainer in the area, but his Pokeball doesn't. It just sits there floating in the air. It's kind of funny. My friend fell through the world once. You know, the game seems to be designed so that, okay, even if that happens, there's something you can do about it. It's working really well, and there hasn't been anything horrible like, oh, your save file got corrupted and you have to start over from the beginning of the game, or oh, we accidentally forgot everything in your Pokédex. And nothing super horrible like that. So, it's been fun. Outside that, I can't think of anything else to talk about. Hopefully I get to the 6-star raid battles before this event Charizard stuff finishes, because I know that's coming up. Although I don't know how desperate I need that or want that. He's not going to like that. But, yeah, it's a thought. So, outside of that, I think that's everything. Y'all, have a nice week.